Hello and welcome. We are with Mr. S Parthasarhty of M&M. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. What are the key challenges that companies face with regards to VUCA?
See, basically, some of the key challenges which we face, first thing is when the volatility is around you and there is so much of changes which are happening. What do you need? You need a lighthouse. And the lighthouse for any organization is governance. And therefore, it is absolutely important in a VUCA world to have some solace, some comfort, that governance. So I think the biggest challenge is maintaining and keeping that governance standards high. And when you have that, you have a bedrock, you have a very solid foundation. The next big thing that they need to have is risk management and at an enterprise level, enterprise risk management. And these are two things that they need to have, but they need to have something on the softer side as well. They need people, the CFOs and their teams who are agile, who are what I call as the 5.0 CFOs, okay? Not 1.0, 2.0, but 5.0, the value creator. And that 5.0 CFO is all about value creation. And therefore, is he adapting the softer side? Is he changing? Can he bring changes as VUCA environment is changing? Not when it changes, as it changes. And therefore, he has to have many simulations ready. He's like has a lot of arsenal in his armory, and he can take out and fire as the situation develops, as they say.
All right. So it's interesting that you spoke about the CFO because that is directly related to you as well. How do you think that the CFO should change himself to, operate in the VUCA environment?
See, the first and foremost is that I'll reverse the order because just now I talked about governance and came out to aptitude. But when it comes to how should the CFO change?
Right.
The CFO should move towards value creation. The business partnering was a great phase, but it was a phase. Now the new world means he has to move one step forward and say, I'm going to enable, enhance and engender for the organization. Enable is do what the CEO wants. Enhance is give something new, little bit more. And engender is create new business models. And with technology, he should create. So he should be first, he should engender. And I call this the principle of 30-70 to 70-30. Today, about 30% of the time we do in helping the CEO. We must make that 70. The 30% he must do to keep everything under the governance and other things going, all the healthy things. But 70% is to fight and win in the VUCA world. So if he wants to play to win, he has to be 70-30 in favor of VUCA challenge facing time.
Okay. In terms of risk and returns, where can a CFO of this environment actually strike the right balance?
So the risk is something that one needs to be aware of, not to be afraid.
Right.
So playing to win actually means he takes into account the risk and he makes it a competitive advantage. So first step is to understand the risk, and then he says, and he does the Lakshman Rekha to my mind, which relates on the what I call the governance. The governance is just not about doing the ethical things. It's much bigger than that. You have a standard of saying this is the return I want. So therefore, how do we get that return, which is risk weighted? Yeah, not hoping that it will happen in the best scenario. Risk comes and washes away the entire, all good work done. So that's what a CFO needs to weigh the risks and play this game.
So how is a company like yours, coping with, say, the dynamic VUCA environment which it's surrounded with?
Yeah, so we play to win. Okay, and that's how, and we've launched a program within M&M.
Okay.
It's called Play to Win. How do you do scenario and situational planning?
Okay.
And therefore, you are able to look at this in varying lights, not one light, not one shade, but different shades, and therefore you can act in a different ways as situation unfolds. Budget for a year or passe. Scenario planning and situational planning is the time now, And that's how we should look at each one of us. And this is what we play to win. We launched a program so that it's not only me who thinks like that, it's the entire organization who thinks like that.
So then how easy has it been for the organization to quantify, say, situational planning?
Yeah, so it's reasonably easy when you do scenario planning. You think of a scenario.
Right.
It's been in existence.
Right.
The importance of it has become much more today.
Okay.
And the number of scenarios you have drawn becomes much bigger today. So it's not very easy, but it's not impossible.
All right.
It's reasonably okay.
Okay. There was also talk about Indian companies being over leveraged, particularly when it has to do with M&As and acquisitions abroad.
Yeah.
What's your view on that? And do you actually think that there is a way out for some of these companies who find themselves caught in this trap?
Yeah. First thing is, over leveraging is like greed in the name of innovation. So I am never a subscriber of over leveraging. I'll never will be.
Right.
And therefore, in the VUCA environment, you are just, very, very vulnerable, because you don't know when it goes up, you are looking great, but when it goes down, it pulls the company along with it. So it's a tough one. Now, some people would have thought they would do well and leverage for good times. Now they are over leveraged. So the first thing is go back to basics of saying, what will I do to deleverage that? And if you have to get if you're putting bad money after good money, stop. And put, kind of do the right things, put the basics in place. Expansion can wait in those environments. First, deleverage. Second is, we today talked about, in today's meeting, talked about capital raising, yes, alternate finding, using Ps. There are many people who know as much and more than us, and more in financial world. Take help, call for help. They will help you with this situation. Leveraging is always, other option is put equity, right? Not easy, but may be required.
All right. Commodity prices are falling. What kind of an impact do you see it having on the Indian economy in terms of inflation, interest rates, and even growth, perhaps?
Okay. Mr. Nadir Godrej pointed out that most of our inflation comes from commodity. And therefore, if commodity prices are falling, that is good news for India.
Right.
And with the kind of thing that we did on the rupee support and the forex position, I think the inflation should ease off if they are there. The food inflation is another topic, but clearly possible to bring it down. And then we can press the growth buttons. But if we don't press the growth buttons, we will be in for tough times as we go on. So we need to do something to enable growth in the country.
Okay, how much of a risk factor is China in the current times?
There are two kinds of questions. How is it as a competitor
No.
for India?
Okay.
That could be one question. I don't think you are asking that. You think, is China vulnerable? I sat in China and listened to them. And while there are some risks there, they are more than capable of looking at that risk and managing it. And to this year 7%, some people are projecting 4 to 5% growth next year, but there are others who are saying it may be 7% easily. And they're sitting in World Economic Forum, China. So I don't think there are problems in China, but they are not unsurmountable, and the government may be dealing with it right now.
Okay, what's your call on the rupee and on interest rates?
My call is the safe bet. I keep all the bets in my pocket. And a stable rupee is good for the economy. And that's how RBI has managed it so far without huge intervention. And that's a good thing to have. Okay,
your take on oil prices?
Yeah, oil prices is good where it is. And I hope that it remains. And shale, gas and other things, keep it that way. But some bits like the one that we saw recently in terms of strikes and in terms of terrorism could be a threat to oil supply, and therefore prices may change. But otherwise, we are in for a benign regime on oil is what I think, at least for the next 6 months to a year.
Okay, inflation seems tamed as of now. What do you expect that to reflect in the prices of goods and services going forward, at least in the near future?
I think what has happened is the pace of increase has slowed.
Okay.
It is not zero increase, it's not going down. The pace of growth has changed.
Right.
And therefore, we may see a less inflation regime, and therefore, more stable prices, not lower prices, is what my takeaway is.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's always been a pleasure.